Alright, na siku ya leo ni siku nyingine ambayo tumeweza kuja mahali hapa, na hakika umekuwa ukizoea tukifanya ile show kwa lugha ya Kikuyu, and it goes without saying kwani target audience walikuwa kina nani? Si ni wa Kikuyu jameni. Ila siku ya leo, kando na wale wageni ambao umezoea kuwaona mahala hapa, wanakuja wanakupa habari kamili kwa lugha ya Kikuyu. Leo ni tofauti tena zaidi, na ingekuwa bora zaidi ni kufahamishe kuwa kama utaweza kupata chochote, utakuwa miongoni mwa wachache ambao ni wateule wa kupata yale maneno ambayo ni features zaidi. Nataka kusemaje? Siku ya leo ni kuu, mgeni naye ni mwingine ni mkuu tena hapa. Shaweza kuwasili hapa Dhombe TV, na stesheni ambayo inazidi kupaa na kung'aa kwa kasi tena zaidi, kutambwa na kusikika katika mashika tofauti hapa nchini na hata nje ya nchi. Siku ya leo tunaye mgeni kutoka kule upande wa Ziwani, kule Kisumu na maeneo mengine atakupa zaidi, lakini hapa ni wale wasomi ambao wameweza kurarua vitabu zikakubali kweli. Ni wale wasomi ambao wameweza kupata mapato makuu. They have achieved a lot in life, and today they're gonna share something with you. If you manage to crack anything, then I'll repeat, you might be among the few who maybe have that forbidden wisdom and knowledge on how to penetrate the spiritual realm. Yes, siko peke yangu, lakini kabla sijaleta mwenzangu kutoka upande mwingine, wacha nikwambie ni nani tuko naye. Engineer Goerge Sammy Onyango. Hebu tulia kidogo tu, pata mengi. Upande wa pili siko peke yangu, Bwana Jeroge Clement.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kenywa. Yeah, indeed, today it's a very hot day in Nyeri, very beautiful day, unlike the previous cold, chilly days. And today we are so lucky to actually have a special guest, as mentioned by name. He will tell us much more. And I think that it is such a special day because we are going to delve deep into issues, numbers, statistics. He is going to help us put fresh in numbers so that we are able to understand what numbers represent in our spiritual journey, in our religious life. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Jeroge. And for sure, today, we all understand that Masonic or Satanic or Spheric order, they use numbers to control the world. Also, the Messianic use the same to disseminate information to the world, to communicate or to guide people here on earth. Engineer Goerge, welcome to the TV.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
And pleasure.
Welcome, Engineer.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Pleasure to have you. And maybe we start by getting your introduction. Let's know who do we have on the bench today.
Yes. My name is Goerge Sammy Onyango. I am an engineer by profession. Yes. I have tackled quite a bit in the field of engineering. And actually, when I thought now I was reaching the epitome of my career in engineering, then the tide changed. Not to remove me from engineering, but to understand the power behind the knowledge that I say that I have. Because the knowledge that I have in engineering has achieved quite a lot. I've done many unique things, not only in Kenya here, but also outside the country. They are kind of special in nature, where I've not encountered competition, and most competition because of their special nature. They required special training for me to tackle them. They really have to delve deeply into engineering to understand them. In that effect, I thought maybe because of the knowledge that I acquired that I will do something for my nation, Kenya, And maybe in the process you'll come to know that this idea that I had of the period I was in when the nation was talking about driving the economy through industrialization, and I saw that I have knowledge in industrialization, I came in and actually initiated the process of industrialization through manufacturing. But it was cut short somehow. Because why was I doing that? It is because of the background of what I have. I've got basic foundation in mechanical engineering, which I've done at the undergraduate level. After working for a period, I went for postgraduate training, and I did materials engineering. I believe maybe now I should clarify. There's always a confusion between those who have done material science and those who have done materials engineering. Materials engineering is broader. It uses material science so that you can do materials engineering. So it is a bit of a higher level than materials science.
It is a mother to the...
Yes, it's a mother.
Can you just break it down to
Because
a layman's language?
Material science mostly will deal with the structure and arrangement of the way the composition of a material is, knowing the inbuilt materials in it, how they're interacting there to form that material. Materials engineering goes further and uses those parameters now to develop structures that affect human nature, that mankind will use. It is used when now you want to make something. The material science will enable you to understand how to process through materials engineering to produce something that now affects the human nature. That's where materials engineering is a level higher than material science. There are not very many materials engineers, not very many. It is because of experience. I've encountered most people have done material science. And now in the knowledge of materials engineering, I've tackled quite a number of issues. They range from designing items for manufacture, selection of materials to manufacture it so that it responds to the requirements of that particular function. Going further, and when there's a problem, analyzing the effect of how that thing came. An example of issue that I've done that maybe people know is the investigation of aircraft crashes. The first one I did for this country was when there was the issue of Chelanga. When the helicopter of Chelanga crashed, I did that analysis and came up with a solution of what happened it to come down.
And maybe, not to cut you short, but
Yes.
to emphasize,
Yes.
if you are involved in such an investigation, you can try to give us some hint of the findings so that Kenyans can understand. Maybe people don't get access to that information,
Yes.
but because we are with you,
Yes.
let's sip something from your cup.
Yeah, the one of Chelanga was a failure of a transmission shaft. Yes. The mine was kind of course, my knowledge can go by looking at a surface that cracks as fractured, and the characteristics of that fractured surface can even lead me to determine even the direction of rotation of that particular item. So when I looked at the issues of the fracture of the surface of what was in the Chelanga aircraft, I could even tell which direction the engine was rotating and how the fracture came about.
And engineer,
yes.
to those who may not know very well,
Yes.
what is this Chelanga crash?
Chelanga was a former PC. He was going for an assignment, the northern side. And in the aircraft at the hour, it crashed. It was a police helicopter, helicopter. That was 1980 what? I can't remember very clearly, but it was early 90s, and I think early 90s, but yes. I did that investigation. There was a commission of inquiry which was formed, and they invited me, and I looked at the things that failed, and I came up with a solution to it. Another aircraft investigation I did that also crashed belonged to Kenya School of Flying. This was a fixed-wing aircraft. But with the issues of pieces that fractured, pieces that failed, I went back and determined the cause of that failure. And of course, it turned out that there was failure for the people who were doing maintenance, but I zeroed on the part that caused the failure. And it became a contest even in the court, and they have to bring in the manufacturer from Texas for that particular aircraft. Unfortunately for them, they did not understand that deep, even though they were the manufacturers, but they didn't understand the science behind that kind of failure. But then when we concluded the case, they knew, because the judge even allowed me to conduct a small lesson to demonstrate how such kind of failures occur. And with the photographic evidence of what I had, they could see how that failure occurred. Another failure that I had done was that one belonging to Saitoti.
And maybe for
Yes.
Chilanga.
Yes.
Was it a normal accident or it was a premeditated one?
You know, when I come to the failures, I leave for the people to know the process which they were using to maintain. What I knew is that there was a sudden stoppage of the power to the gearbox which were rotating the aircraft propellers. There was a sudden stoppage, but the engine was still in full power. So it overrode the subensor, and the only thing which could yield was the propeller shaft, the shaft that was transmitting on that one. So it could have been due to poor maintenance of that one, and oversight. Something must have been unlocking slowly without them realizing. It can only have been an oversight in that maintenance. And eventually something fell and blocked the rotation transmission to the gearbox, but the engine in full power, so it applied that force and cut the propeller shaft. And then it came down.
Let's go to the Saitoti one.
Yes. The one of the Saitoti I also did, and this one was a hydraulic failure. When I looked at it, a hydraulic failure, you know, the weight of an aircraft is heavy, and for you to, with your hand, to control easily, so they have hydraulic assistance to control the operation of an aircraft. So when a hydraulic failure occurs, you lose that control. So for this Saitoti, there was also a hydraulic failure, which came from the pump that was driving delivering the pressure for the hydraulic system. This kind of failure, it was caused by the fire for the hydraulic, because the belt that was transmitting power to the pump got burnt and got cut, and then the pump stopped running. So there was no power coming from the hydraulic system to go and rotate, to go and control the movement of the aircraft. And if you cannot control those direction and movement and what, obviously it will come down like a stone.
What ignited that fire?
The fire, that was the contention. But with the analysis, you could see that there was a hydraulic leakage, which was coming out at very high pressure. And then, of course, it is in the proximity of the discharge of the hydraulic, of the exhaust system of an aircraft, which is hot, comes out hot. And if it comes out as a vapor and it's a fuel, of course it will pick fire. And then it comes and so the only issue was what punctured the pump, I mean the pipe, because the hydraulic was coming out of the pump, of the pipe, at high pressure. And when it's coming out of the high pressure, of course it forms a mist. Just like the principle of what we know is a diesel engine. When you take fuel, it's liquid.
Yeah.
But when it's going into the engine, in the cylinders, it is gas. And what forms it to gas, because it's being forced on a very small hole, which is called a valve, the injector valve for a diesel engine. So when you push it at high pressure, it comes out as a mist, as an atomized gas. And so when there's any spark on it, and mark you, the one for diesel engine ignites without a spark. It ignites because of temperature. Yes?
High compression.
High compression. It goes high compression, and then you spill in the gas and it explodes. This one was also having high pressure, and the environment of the heat, yes, it picked fire. The hydraulic pressure hydraulic oil coming out atomized, so it picked fire. And then it cut the belt. So the belt could not, the hydraulic pump stopped working. And that's why definitely the aircraft could not stay airborne. It had to come down. Was
it accidental or incidental?
It was difficult to say that unless you can be for sure. Because what I know, there existed a crack where the fuel was coming. That could have been done either by lack of, but the aircraft was new. So either it was maintenance or whatever, that one I cannot tell. But what I know is that it was leaked from the pipe at high pressure and became a gas.
And because wreckages were all over, how can you determine that? Yet you did fix it together, then start looking. It was messy.
All the pieces. You know, by understanding the principle of operation, the principle of operation of an instrument like that, I know for it to come down, you know this way of failure investigation. The first thing you ask, when it comes down, what possibly could have brought it down? What keeps it up when it goes up? And you know that for it to go up, it has to generate some thrust to come down, isn't it? And that thrust is generated through the rotation of the propellers. And the angle depends on how you change the aerofoil propeller, whether to go up, to go forward, or to change direction. So for it to come down, that system must have failed in the first place. If at all.
In most cases, engineer, whenever an accident of an aircraft happens, the first thing that ordinary people get to know is that the investigators are searching for the black box.
Yes.
Whatever the black box is.
And the cockpit voice recorders.
Yes. Does it give concrete
that gives information
that helps, can help clarify, because from my understanding, not many of these aircraft accidents have been
fully investigated,
or concrete results.
I think the black box alone will not tell you all the black box could have told you hydraulic failure. Maybe you could have said, or the pump, because it picks all the operations on an aircraft. When this particular pump stops, it will pick the pump stopped. Now, what stopped the pump? That is what you come back to. The pump, for this case, was belt driven. But belt does not have a sense on it. Belt. So when the belt gets cut, it may say the pump stopped, but it may not say the belt got cut. So you have to come back and find out, why did the pump stop in the first place? Because the black box, as you know, will work with sensors sending signals to it.
Yeah.
Yes. And this one particular one, of course, in the belt, there's no sensor for it so that it can send. But the pump will have when it's not working. So when the pieces are all that, in my field of investigation, I've done what you call it a forensic investigation of the failed parts. I looked at parts that have broken, parts that have failed. There are so many types of failures that I know which can happen. There are those which take slow pace. There are those which are sudden. There are those which are, cyclic. So they are all having various characteristics. So when I looked at those characteristics, I can know which kind of failure happened. If it's what you make term as a brittle failure, I know brittle failure what can cause. If it's called, a ductile fracture, I know what ductile fracture will cause. If it is a fatigue failure, I know what kind of fatigue. So I look for characteristics of those kind of failures. Once I get those, then I check the area where they are operating from. And what kind of operation, what kind of forces are experienced in that one. So what could have caused that kind of fracture. So it's a sequence of looking at all those things, and you go until you come in. Like the one of Sri Lanka, I never went to the site. I only brought the parts that were the parts that failed. And from the macroscopic and microscopic examination, I determined all the kind of fracture it was. And from that, I worked backwards. And I determined even which direction that particular engine was rotating. So I work from the characteristics of fractures and failures and can go back and find out exactly what happened.
In this case, Saitoti's chopper coming down, if it was the first maybe trip for this aeroplane, maybe that mistake or that accident can happen. But we know from Wilson to Kibiko, That's a very near distance.
It's a very short distance.
Yeah, it's a very
said
short
it
distance.
only took 10 minutes in there.
Yes. So if it was hydraulic failure or that mechanical failure, that aircraft could not have taken off from Wilson.
Of course, if it was a hydraulic failure, it won't even. You can't lift.
Yeah.
It failed airborne. The hydraulic failure. That's why it came back down.
Yeah.
For it to go up, you have to use the hydraulic to change, to lift it, to take it direction and go. But it must have failed airborne so that they stop functioning. So
maybe if your guess is good as mine, does it mean maybe a puncher? Somebody introduced a puncher so that it can slowly. You know, that was, yes, of course, that one now somebody's another level of integration. Me, what I have to, in my analysis of failures, I give them the source of what. They can go further. Now, first of all, you have to go and find out that pipe in the first place, where the hydraulic oil was coming from. And then you have to analyze it. And so what kind of a puncture is it? Is it an induced puncture? Or was it because something vibration cracked it? Or because anything, or lack of maintenance? You have to go and find out. Or is it maybe a union that was not tightened well, and then now, because of this is high pressure, it was coming out as a mist or something? So you have to go and now zero on that particular item. And then now you go to determine the involvement, or whether it's human nature deliberate, or whether it is something that happened accidentally. But what it is that what came out there was a mist. And a mist, and I could see from what you call a cowling. Cowling is a cover which was covering it. People may ask, how did you know that was fire in the first place? One thing, the hydraulic oil or most aircraft, they are what you call fire stabilized. They are not supposed to burn easily. They are retarded in combustion, so that to save. So even hydraulic system have a fire retarded, fire additives that will inhibit just free combustion. Yeah. So when you have partial combustion, yes, when it was burning, it was not burning fully. It was burning but with droplets coming, or some were not burning. But because of high pressure, the droplets were impinging on the inside. And when they impinge as droplets, very many droplets on the covering. Yeah? And droplets is liquid, isn't it? But droplets, they emit. When you drop here, you see this one is boundary. In between. See, there are boundaries where the droplets are. Those boundaries are exposed to metal. So when there is smoke, yes, or the smoke or whatever outside, they will settle on the way or the boundaries or the droplets, isn't it? So eventually when the droplets are, the pattern remains of where the smoke was drawing, where the droplets were, like a fish scale pattern. So you know very well that this one was far with what you call carbon deposits right inside the zones where the droplets were sticking. Then you know that one, you see carbon formation, which was now forming like a fish scale pattern, telling you there was fire under here, but not full combustion. Some of them was dropping, and then there was smoke. So you see there was fire under. Engineer, and all this time, all these things were happening. In the cockpit, the pilot and the first officer, you mean they were not seeing this so that they can relay information to the ATC?
Now, I'll ask you a question. Most drivers of cars, do they know what happens in the bonnet? Most, under the bonnet.
But if you're experienced enough and you know your car very well, if anything happens, you will realize there's a problem. Because that's your line.
10 minutes is a very short time.
Or also, engineer, maybe you can look at it this way also. From the dashboard can give you a lot of information that might be happening beyond what you can see. Yeah?
Of course, that is now what you want to analyze what should happen, which was also not my calling then. My calling was to look at the failure. Yes. Now the experience and then the sophistication of the dashboard and the signals coming in and all that one, that was not my field of. Yes. Mine was to go. Now if you want further, to follow further, is now when you can go and interrogate all those. Mine is to determine what kind of failure was it and what could have caused it. And then now the systems of determining whether they are showing there or not. That depends on sophistication of the aircraft, the experience of the pilots, their training on that one, or whether those systems were provided for that particular aircraft.
Who would be in a position to give, further clarification beyond the investigation that you did?
When we are given those roles, and my letter specifically stated to investigate the gearbox. Any other part that I went to now could be on my own. But my letter, which came from the chairman of the commission, chair of the commission, was to investigate the transmission gearbox. So even if I saw any others which were not within my, I report according to my mandate. I was given the role to investigate the gearbox. Yes. Yes. Yes.
But I saw some reports that were saying that chopper at some point became a kite.
A kite?
Yes. The pilot and the first officers were doing nothing. They just let it go.
But once you lose that control, even if you are fighting, what do? There's nothing you can do. Once you lose control of those movements, you are called a sitting duck. You are waiting. There's nothing you can do. Because the only thing that can help you is if you can control the movement of those platforms, because of the ones which are controlling you.
If you're conscious or unconscious?
No, okay. So
because if you're conscious enough, you can try to do something.
Even if you are conscious and you lose that one, there's nothing you can do.
And
even if you are conscious.
Black box cannot record you tried this, it failed, tried this, it failed.
That one, I don't know. I didn't go to the specification of that aircraft, whether it was provided with that one. Yes, so that can say what was happening. Yes, I didn't go into all that detail. It was not my mandate to go and find out what were they doing. It was not on the pile. Mine was on the gearbox. Yes.
Okay. And you concluded it was a normal accident.
I concluded the failure occurred due to the failure of the pump. The aircraft came down to failure of the pump. Loss of hydraulic operation of the aircraft. So,
and the chopper was new?
Yeah, of course, when you see that it had not stayed long. Yeah, it was not stayed long. Even when the engine was dismantled, there was nothing wrong with the engine. It was still new.
What did the manufacturer say?
No, I don't know. I don't know. They, of course, I don't know about their report. I do about my report. I was not fully in I was a reporter to the commission. I was not the investigator on the entire process. There must have been people who are looking into that area. My mandate was on the gearbox, to investigate the gearbox, and that's where I found the answer. Yes.
The gearbox. Maybe we'll find another.
Yes.
Or your fellow, one of those who you were in the commission together, they will tell us also the activities that happened before Saitoti boarded to the brain.
Just maybe to wrap up the issue of because you have investigated the others.
Yes, yeah.
Have you, from your experience, maybe even abroad and locally here, you have mentioned the failures of the aircraft, those 2 or 3. What is the most common failure? And sometimes as an investigator, you get suspicious of some of the findings that you get. Even when you are making your analysis, you can ask yourself, if you're a critical thinker, you'll ask yourself, why did this happen?
The reason why investigators fail to find a cause.
To an extent that even when you have compiled your final report, you are actually in doubt that the report you are giving may have some gaps that need further investigation.
That always happens, and you'll find that even sometimes the manufacturers may not be aware of certain background issues that create failure. And this I say from experience. The one I tell you I investigated for Kenya School of Flying. They wanted to call it hydraulic system failure. Not the kind of this hydraulic failure. You cannot compress water. When water goes in the cylinder, and it's too much of it, and the piston is coming up, and they feel you cannot compress water when there's no exit, isn't it? But when the force is still coming behind, something pushing it, if there's too much force, it will have to yield because water cannot be compressed.
Yeah.
But that kind of failure, when it occurs, there's a characteristic of the system levers that are doing that. There's a way they are going to bend or failure or crack. There's a way they are going to, because the force is coming from, so you have to do force analysis, how they are going. So with the hydraulic failure, they definitely you'll see how the system that failed, where the direction of the forces came from. But this one did not happen in that one. This one was called a fatigue failure for repeated operations. And it came from a small bolt which fell off. And then the big end bearing, the bearing cap opened up. And that particular piston, the one that caused failure, jumped out of the crankshaft and it came and hit it and cracked. You know, there was a series. So the only thing that I took all the evidence, the series, how the sequence, how it was going, and you could see even the one where the source it came from. There was, I told you, I see characteristics of fractured surfaces. And I looked at the bolt that came, and it was just in oil. From the oil, I picked it from the oil. And from the oil of the stem, from there, I knew. And then I investigated the direction of the bend of the bolt, the type of fracture it is, until all the engine exploded into pieces from the origin. And you see, the manufacturer couldn't agree on that. Because agreeing, it means that they give you substandard. So they termed it hydraulic, which wasn't. And this aircraft had been airborne, it was coming back to land. Hydraulic happens when you are starting when you're starting. Yeah, that's when you encounter hydraulic, not something that already been running.
Yeah.
So this one came back when it was coming to land, is when that engine exploded. Mid-air over Kibera area, and it landed with one engine. So first of all, that should have told them in the first place that it should not be hydraulic, because you cannot have an hydraulic system unless there was water failure now in coming into that system, and then it countered. But hydraulic, which you talk about, which you blow, starts when you're starting the engine. So those are the characteristics I look for. Yeah, but those are now very many. I know I got done many investigations of that, those kind of. And
just out of curiosity, because we have had that very tragic aircraft mishaps in this country. One of them is the Côte d'Ivoire, the KQ.
That one, yes.
The other one, which perished, where we had ministers who perished.
Oh yeah, this one.
What is your own, as an investigator, after looking at some of these cases, what would you say is the Kenya aircrafts, especially the ones run by the government, safe? And you know, nowadays we have almost all the government MPs and all of them running choppers around. Is our airwaves also safe?
I can only comment on the ones I've looked at. Yes, if I comment on the other ones, it will be speculation. I can only talk on the ones that I've looked at.
You just, as an investigator, for information purposes.
Of course, any failure must have a cause. Any failure. It can be due to age, due to overuse, lack of maintenance, or maybe deliberately induced. Any failure can has a cause. So the purpose is to look at it and look at the possibility of that kind of failure, whether it came out as lack of any of those failures I've talked about, whether it was poor maintenance, or whether it is a material that is substandard, or whether it is lack of knowledge on how to secure it, because you can also put it wrongly and then it fails, or whether it's a deliberate introduction of that failure. So it depends.
Or fatigue, you say that?
They can fatigue.
Some parts of
the parts, yes.
And maybe we can proceed and look some other area that you have covered so well in this country, or you are hugely involved.
In my technical, I was going to drive this point, that in that knowledge that I've acquired both in materials, engineering, mechanical, and other fields I've delved into, they were leading in my calling to use it for the transformation of this nation. Because we talk about issue of industrialization through manufacturing. But one item that I would like people also to understand, when we talk of manufacturing, because you find that we say they are manufacturing, but they talk about sugar, they talk about maize milling, they talk about maybe milk processing, they talk about cement, they talk about, those are processing, they are not manufacturing. You use a system that is set up to process those things. That's not manufacturing. Manufacturing is to do an item that you can assemble together or use to, so that you create a system that will help you in processing. Yeah. That is manufacturing in my understanding. But that does not happen much in this nation, or to a smaller scale. So my aim was to use that process to introduce industrial manufacturing. And industrial manufacturing cannot be done without the absence of the foundation material for manufacturing. And that's why I was very strong in pushing for the steel industry for this nation, to have a steel industry, because that is where you start. But before this came about, because I believe you want to know the background of this. Yeah. I attended a course sometimes long ago in 1993 in Turkey. It was a course which was sponsored by UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization. But it was for developing nations, the countries which want to industrialize. So the bulk of the nations that were in that conference, it was in Turkey, were from Asia. Africa, there were 5 countries which were participating in that. At the end of it, I challenged UNIDO about the effectiveness of the course they had given us for transforming our nations. And I said, of course, the course, in my understanding, because with my background, I found that it's something which actually can create a foundation for industrial development in any nation. But you chose the people in the low end, because when I come from here, I need to have passed this information. But the attitude of the people in leadership, sometimes they look at you and say, what can this kijana tell us? So we stand a chance of losing what we have learned here. So I suggested that they should bring a similar course, but with watered down or moderated language, but for people who are in charge of decision making for nations, so that they can use, you've given us the technical bit of it, you give those guys issues that will help them make a decision to use the knowledge, so that we industrialize our nations. In the process, while I was taking, he said a message came to me, because it's a hotel setup. So while I was talking, somebody approached, but he whispered a message in my ear about what I was talking about and seeing it happen in the country where I come from and my involvement in it. But I didn't. I looked at it and I said, hey, that message. At that time, I looked at, oh, this is beyond me. So I dismissed it because I didn't see anywhere.
What was the message?
Later on, I could not fit in what you were saying. It was too major for me, so I could not fit. So I dismissed that message.
What was it?
It's about the transformation of this nation. The message you related to all the events you're seeing happening in this country. Right now, we started in 2017, when there was the first nullification elections. The information has been going one. I'll let you know how everything has not passed. Yes, it is related to all this what is happening, but it's geared towards changing this nation for the benefit of the mankind and the benefit of the people who are called the hustlers. So that as the fingers are, they are not equal, isn't it? Yeah. But there's no finger that complains. That yes, the nation is supposed to be that way. There are people different what, but then they should be comfortable, just as the fingers are in a hand. Yes. So this nation is bound to come to a stage where whatever role you are doing, whatever it is for the nation, you should be comfortable there.
So are we on the right trajectory?
It is divine. And God's word never fails. And I'll come to tell you why it is. You will see. It is a divine message. And sorry. Coming to know about the message being divine, it took me time. And eventually, when I tell you, the message was exactly as the one in the book of Daniel, chapter 10. And I'll show you, I've got the here papers, that the date that I got to that place and the message and the 21 days it took for Daniel, it took for me 21 years. Because I was in Turkey in 1993. But the message came for application in 2014 when I had a case in court and was determined. And that's when the message came to be reminded. I was reminded of the message of, did you hear what was said in Turkey? And then when I analyzed, I found that this one is 21 years. I was in Turkey on 24th of May. Daniel was beside River Tigris on 24th. That's Daniel chapter 10. You can read it and you see. A message came to Daniel, a message came to me. River Tigris come from Turkey. He said, Turkey, I was also in Turkey. The date when I left Turkey and the date of the new beginning in the Bible, all. So I was being reminded, check those ones. Then I realized, so that was a divine message. So that was not just an ordinary person that came to talk to me. That must have been an angel of God who would talk to me. But me, I thought it was just an ordinary person. So when you look at it here and you see what was there, because if you want, I'll show you the other. I've carried them for you to see. That you'll see that all the parameters and the things that I was told there are according to here, and they are affecting this nation. And they are based on God speaks and God wants you to confirm. So confirmation of the word of God. He says that based on his word that you can see in Acts chapter 2, verse 22, that he confirms his word by signs, wonders and miracles. So he chose the particular side which is biblical, which I believe we'll talk about, to drive his message for this nation. Yes?
Engineer, when people who are well schooled like you do, and with big careers like you do as well, start speaking matters spirituality, majority of the people do say that they have lost their senses. Maybe, I don't know how you perceive it, but you can tell us how all this started, and maybe how you started failing on, how you took it, those who agreed with it, and where we are.
You are right. Because even for me, for a very long period, about 9 months, I thought I'd lost my mind. 9 months. I was fighting what was happening. So it's not something which is now far-fetched. Because where I was sitting, I was hearing, but of course people are not seeing, and they were happening. And he was telling me to move from what I've been doing to concentrate on a particular field, and everything I was doing was locked. It was a battle for 9 months, fighting the message that was coming in my head, because I do not believe. You know, the problem is that the message was divine-based. It was biblical, and yet by the time it was coming to me, I was a stranger to the Bible. So I didn't know whether all those things I was hearing were from the Bible.
When was this?
2013, and the message, the onset of it was 6th of January 2013.
Were you born a Christian?
Born a Christian.
Were you born a Christian before?
You mean born again or born a Christian?
Born, I mean,
family of Christian.
Your background?
No, yes, I've grown in a Christian family. Yes, even baptism, I was baptized in a church. Yes. So, but the only thing that I was never interacting with, because even the schools I went to, the all technical schools, the religious education was not part of the teaching.
Yeah.
Yes, technical schools. So I went through from Form 1 all the way to, I was in technical. So even the chance of interacting with the religious education was not there. And when I left, I concentrated much on my side of, yes, I was casually, occasionally when I go to church, casually, you know, but I never say that now I want to buy it, I want to get close to practicing, buy a Bible, maybe says yes. So I did it. So by the time it was coming to me, I was crude, very crude, because that's the time I realized that even in the Bible, I don't even know which books are in the Bible. So, and one of the reasons I never carried a Bible to the church, because when I reached that stage, I didn't want to face embarrassment that they tell me, open the book of Nahum. I never even heard of Nahum. So, how do I open Nahum? So I didn't want to avoid embarrassment. I go to church without carrying any, so that I don't look at them flipping, trying to find out where this is. That took a long, occasionally when I went to church.
By the time you were getting all this revelation,
yes,
what were you doing in the life?
The revelation came as a sudden thing. When I'll tell you that I was concerned too much on doing in the field of engineering.
Yeah.
I'd been given a contract to be the chief executive officer of a numerical machining complex, the former Nyayo Motors Corporation. I entered almost what I call a moribund company. It had been struggling and almost dead. And I wanted to showcase that this thing is possible. So the board then agreed that they could let me operate without a lot of interference to get that thing out of where it was. So it took me less than 10 months to change it, to start doing the thing it is. Not even with the technical staff which was skilled, because by the time it reached that stage, most people who are able to do anything had disappeared. So when I got in there, I found some 49 people, by messengers, office workers, and low-level kind of technicians and what. So I could not do much with them as a direct. So I said, this one, with these 49 people, I will have to wear the cap. Not as the chief executive officer. When I go to the workshop, I become a technician to drive. When I finish doing this is when I go back to the office as a CEO. So I took the role of coming all the way and driving them, like, physically driving them, me going to direct operations here and then going back to, until the thing came up. When it came up now, it picked properly. We had some study tour to showcase what we wanted to do. And it was a very high-level government delegation. It was from Vision 2030, from NESC. NESC is National Economic and Social Council. It was from Minister Industrialization. It was from Foreign Affairs. And then our ambassador there. So we went to showcase. I went to show them what I want to do in Korea, South Korea, in the steel mills. If you did, when they saw exactly what I was talking about, they came and we reported, of course. Eventually, the word reached the office of the president, what we are doing. And then head of the public service, then Francis Mudaura came, and so that time I started doing some things. Major manufacturing thing, machines, lathe machines and all that. We were already doing that one. So when they looked at the Francis Mudaura looked at this, he said, hey, this one the president must see. So he went and organized for the president to come, and he came with the entire lot. He came with then the former prime minister, then there was also, before Uhuru, there was a deputy prime Uhuru Kenyatta, and almost the cabinet came. And then they looked at it, and I presented my case. They had, and then they said, this one we need to support. So there was goodwill from the head of state, and of course, it was not just empty talk. In the next budget, there was an allocation, of which when I got the letter of that allocation, is the last letter I signed on that desk. And then I was kicked out. The people who kicked me out, I'm sure did not understand why they kicked me out. Neither did anybody understand. Because there was no reason, even that letter. It was one paragraph, did not even mention anything. He just said that we have decided not to renew your, because even my contract had not even expired.
From which office? From which office? The letter of...
The letter was written by one other than Nick Wanjoy. You know Nick Wanjoy?
Yeah,
yes, he was the chairman of the board. He's the one who wrote me the letter and kicked me out. But they didn't, nobody understood, not even me. I came to understand when I started interacting with this. The reason why I had to move out that date was the reference of all the prophecies that you hear. That God had to make sure that that date I left, because I was going to start all the works that he was telling me based on that.
So it got everyone by surprise?
Everybody, even went to court. Actually, the case I can show you, case number 35 for 2012, one of the respondents was the President of Kenya. And so nobody expected me to win that case, because...
You're also suing or asking the president to be a respondent.
he was one of them. And so people are asking me, are you mad? Although it is my lawyer, but even my lawyer, everything I discovered later on that was not being done in the, with the human knowledge. When everything started turning out, I found that it was not, initially we were looking at it in the lens of the human knowledge. But later on, it turned out that this one was a divine hand, which made sure that I left that place that date. Because of the message he was going to give, was going to be, reference point was going to be the date I left in that place. And that's why I had to leave in that day. So I was kicked out of NMC, and that's where the journey started.
People who serve this nation in different capacities, when they receive God's calling, it comes with a lot of resistance, either inter or intra. Maybe, what was your case?
My case was a lot of resistance because I didn't understand in the first place. You know, it came at the wrong time to me that time, because I was fighting the case in the court. At the same time, I'm being made to do things which are not going to bring me any. I've already lost my job. I thought, because when I was called to head NMC, I was already now out doing my own private business. I didn't wind them up. I left people working. So confidently I said I'll walk back and continue with what I used to do. But when I reached there, I found that even there God had put a very big padlock. Nothing was going to work. Even things of my own and the ones that I created myself, the things of my own knowledge, nothing could work. It went such a nail that even people who are depositing for the, you know, when you get a job and you say they will give a deposit for start, the money could not settle in the account. It comes, it goes back.
That's in your company?
Yes.
Private company.
Yeah, private company. Everything was not working. Even my accounts, eventually, when I was insisting, then I found my accounts closed. When I go to the bank, they ask me, why did you close the account? So I say, I'm asking them, why did you close my accounts? So nobody's asking, I'm asking them, they're asking me why I went and closed the accounts. So that everything, just also the message which was in my head, sit down and read my word. All the things that you've been doing, I'll use another avenue to bring help to you. But I could not take it. I said, what is this avenue that's going to bring resources to me? So I was fighting, and when the message came, the day it came, because it did not start exactly the day I left my job. I left my job in September of 2012. But now the encounter came on 6 January 2013. After this period, 6 January 2013, when now, you see, when you are under such kind of thing, you go to church, you're trying to get, you know, when you're in such a, that's when you realize God is there. Because now there's a case in court, nothing is working, so what do? Let me go, Sunday I go to church. So I started going to church. But then the preaching of that particular day on 6 preached about the Daniel chapter 4 from 37 onwards. But when I left that church that day, the name Daniel refused to enter. It was just, I thought I was going mad, because everywhere I see it was just Daniel, continuous. From 1 o'clock when I left church to 8 o'clock, then when it reached 8 o'clock, I asked my wife, can I have a Bible and check what is in this Daniel? So when I opened the page of Daniel, then it did, it stopped. So now reading, you know. So I thought it was just that day. The following day I go to the office, but I don't have a Bible now, that one. Then I reach the office, I open my laptop, want to do things, then it commences. Daniel. I cannot concentrate. The thing is making so much noise in my head. Daniel. Then I said, but I don't have, then I said, but I can Google. Let me Google. So when I Google and reach Daniel, it stops. So it kept on like that. Eventually, I was bought a, no, this is the second, I was bought a King James version, KJV. But when I tried looking at it, I could not understand. Everything there was English that was. So yes,
the
yes, it was everything. Because even that time I don't have even the concentration.
And which year is this?
2013.
2013.
Yes.
Do you remember the month, or does it have any significance in your life?
Yes, that date was 6th.
Now that you know the name Daniel could not help.
6th of January 2013. That is when it happened.
What's the significance? Does it have any significance?
No. You come to know the reference of that later, but because everything is marked.
Okay.
I'll show you later. Okay. I'll show you later. In this book here, there are so many recordings of have this kind of charts, numbers, these ones you see here. I was made to, and even when I was doing them initially, I didn't know the reason why. You know, when it's a divine thing, you'll do things even you don't understand, which later I came to understand what it was about. I recorded every single date from, actually here, from 3rd of September 2012 to now is here, plus other volumes I've left. Every single. And then he started telling me when the particular reference reaches, you will see this line and then something will happen. And of course, nothing has failed. I'll show you. Nothing has failed according to what God has said, referring to that. Nothing has, for election nullification, to BBI flop, to what, all these things that have been happening, nothing has failed.
And maybe before all this, earlier on, were you a Bible warmer?
Bible reader? No, I've told you I didn't. Not even, that's why when it caught me, I didn't even have an understanding of the word of God, not even the Bible. And I never even bought one, to be my Bible, never. So when this thing came, I was green, totally green. And that's why I was finding problems. So the initial support came from, because then I was having dreams and visions in the night. So when I narrate to my wife what I was doing, she looks at me and says, can you go and check this particular verse in a chapter in the Bible? So when I read, I find something similar to the dream. That's when I started getting my attention being caught. The things of God, when he brought me back to the message, he gave me in 1993. You can't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. And that's why I'm saying with everything of God, he can't let you without reference. Everything of God. You see this, you see how this telex is? You see this telex? That one. That is the telex that came to me to go to Turkey in 1993. You see how it is? It resurfaced 21 years later from a source that I could not. This telex, you can see 1993. After 2014 is when it came in. After the case was, and the way it came about, I was seated in the, after now the case had been decided. Because the case was decided on 16th of January 2014. Now, just about that case of my case that was in court that I sued about my dismissal. It was 16th of January 2014. So now when I was sitting, I said, now what next? In the evening, then I hear some movement like in a small, there was a paper bag next to me. So I thought a rat was in there. So when I check, I say, this is not a rat. This looks like a bat. And I say, a bat in this house, where can a bat come from? And everything is sealed, sealing board is what? So I wait and call my wife to come. And I show her and I say, we actually find it's a bat. And so we wrap it up in that bag. I put some newspapers in it and I say, oh, you're satanic. And I go and burn it where I burn Russia. So I was standing there burning it and you're chokora. Yes? So when it is all burnt, then now I was trying to check. I could see the nini of paper, the nini of paper, the black charred paper. But I could not see any sign of the bat. There was nothing. It's like it turned into gas. That even scared me more. Because I could not see that I burnt. I knew I burnt it. Everything else, the paper, what I see. But there was no evidence that there was a bat.
So it was
it was like it converted to gas and disappeared. So that gave me worries. I said, hey, a bat, I burnt it, but now. So the following day, it's a very big bed which I don't move because I fix it. So I said, but I know under it is like a box. So suddenly or under this bed, there could be bats under this bed. I've been sleeping on bats. And I said, but how do I do it? So I go pick a hammer and a screwdriver and what, and I dismantle the bed. Because I could not settle. I was wondering, now where's this bat? So when I dismantled the bed, I found this under the bed. And I was wondering, what's this thing doing here? When I went to Turkey, it was in 1993. In 1993, I was staying in Upper Hill. It's a different house. From Upper Hill, I relocated to Kileleshwa. I think from Kileleshwa is when I came now to the house I stay in Thome in Nairobi. But this and I saw in those. So how did it move all that, and where did it come from to come under this bed after all these trips? When I was wondering about this, I said, but this is when I went to Turkey, And I remember that in Turkey there was a message. Then I say, but no, in Turkey, now how do I prove that I was in Turkey? Then when I was sitting down, I say, for you to go for government trips, you have to get cleared. So when I was thinking, but my passport for that was stolen, then something directs me to the garage where I had to put in some heap of paper. And then I find this on top. This. That is clearance from office of the president. Then now I said, hii maneno hii. That's in 19, you see, that's 1993.
Yeah.
I find it in a garage where I abandoned things. I find it on top. Then I said, now I link this to this. I say, how does this come? So that caught my attention.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what are these happening? And then I realized that there's a name, you see the one I marked in yellow?
Yeah, Mr. JK.
In 1993. That is part of the team that kicked me out of NMC in 2012. Yeah, that name. You saw that name, he was there, and also he was given later on PS and all that. That name, when I was in this letter, that is the same people who kicked me out of NMC.
This is Masonic guy. Masonic guy.
Yes, one of the people. So I started wondering, what is this? Then I was asked, then now I started getting this spiritual communication. He asked me, when you're in Turkey, how old were you? 1993, I was 35 years. The case that we have concluded, what number was it? 35 or 2012. But did you see many 35 there? Yes, even when I was going to complain to the judge, he was given a gate system, this gate card of 35. And in the list where the cases were written, when the cases are listed, what number, all of them I have here, what number were in the list?
I don't want us to rush there because I want to come to the debate of numbers.
Yes.
But let me ask this before we dive into the topic. When all these things were happening, did you keep off your friends, or did anybody realize something abnormal was happening, or you were going through something?
Okay, in the first place, I've never kept very many friends myself. Very many. I've been, you call it what? I have
introvert. Is it introvert?
Yes. Not very many. And I know people. And there's one thing that also happening. You know, my operations and the things I do, very many of my colleagues shy away from, because they feel like they'll be embarrassed when of course, I used to find, because one of the cases that I know of is a professor who was vice chancellor at university. Up to now, he doesn't like seeing me, because in many occasions, especially when you want to take me in the direction that I know you're not taking me the right way, then I'll put in the right track. In several cases I put him, and he really fears to be where I am. He says. So even one day he cancelled a meeting when I went to JQuat had invited me to help them sort out their curriculum on this kind of
campus.
Yes, when Mabel Imbuga was still there. Yes, they called me as with Dr. Marang, Professor Maranga, and all this. Then we went to ERB, and then he saw me there. The meeting was disbanded. He said, no, we cannot continue with this man. Yes, so I had to leave. I had to come specifically JQuat and tell them through, get them, and then so that they can go and have their cases here sorted out. So not very many friends feel comfortable with but I have friends. Slowly, there are some who stick, but some were wondering what is happening to engineer. Yes. Yes, what is happening? So quite a number. The way they say that when you are phone, of course, most of the calls that you get when you are in such offices are not for friendship. They are for people looking for, but they're also friends, isn't it?
And did you share your experience with somebody maybe who you thought had a deep understanding of these matters you are going through? Did you share?
I've tried sharing, even with the church, some members of the church, but not me directly, through my wife. But I was made to do there's a small book I've done, not yet fully done. It's now about page 100, 200, 100 and something that I've done, which picks this and the relation, the way the Bible is working on, so that you can read the verses and you can read the Bible and you can see what is happening and you relate there. So those 2 copies I was told to take to a church. I believe maybe at a later stage, God will want to prove that is. So after done, he told me, this is the way he communicates. Take these 2, this particular, and when I didn't know who I was going to give, apparently he had prepared. When I reached there, he had prepared the right people too. So I gave them the copies. I gave them. I don't know whether they read, but I took them there. And that has a story of what I'm going through. Me and the system that I'm supposed to be having. Because, this thing is not basically meant for me. It is meant for you, it is meant for you, it is meant for everybody, it's meant for the transformation of this nation. But because God wants to come, he has to find a vessel and a way to communicate what he wants to do. And that's why he brought me into this, so that I can understand the message and how he's going to execute that message. As he has spoken in the book of Amos 3:7, surely the Lord God does nothing unless he reveals his secret to his servant, the prophets. So he cannot do it unless he reveals what he wants to do, and he had to look for the servant that he reveals the message that he wants to do when he's doing this nation, so that the nation can be transformed.
Yeah.
So the message is actually for this nation, but the message has to come through me. I have to understand what he's saying, and what he's saying can only be said according to the Bible. So he has to make me understand the Bible and use the Bible to speak to me and show me the signs in the Bible that confirms that it's the one who has spoken. And that's where the numbers came in, and you see how they kept coming.
Yeah.
So, yes.
I just want to take you to a conversation we had earlier week. We didn't really get into details. Do you minister in somewhere, maybe a church? You have a congregation?
No.
And how do they?
Occasionally I can be invited in a small church, just to, occasionally, to give and the message I give normally is not from me. When a man wants me to deliver a message, he gives me and then sends me to that pulpit. It's the small church that I go to. But I do not have a congregation. I just go as normal people, but they can occasionally invite me to share. Like coming here for today, I shared with you how I had finished expressing what God had put in my heart about revealing his word to the people based on the preaching that I had one of the pastors preach. And I was saying maybe we need a little bit more deep knowledge on understanding how God operates. So when I was just lamenting to my pastor, then I found a message from you.
From me.
Without even sitting down, there's a message that came. And when I was reading the message, it is exactly what I've told the pastor.
So no coincidence.
And now you see, engineer, you have a congregation now. What message do you have?
Congregation, my congregation is Kenya. Kenya right now, because that is what maybe Kenya and generally even beyond the borders. God wants to show, as he said, that when you read the book of Revelations, it's in truth God who was, God who is, and God who is to come.
Yeah.
Which is similar to in the book of Hebrews 13:8. Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. He never changes. What does that mean? What we read about God having done those days, he's still able to do now. There's nothing that's going to be beyond God to do, and it's going to do it even tomorrow. So when we read about Daniel getting out of the den of lions, or Elijah going to the widow Zarephath and staying there until the oil and making red from nowhere. Oil is not running out and fly is not running out. Even now he can do it. And to me, I personally have encountered that. When I ran out of fuel and then he closed my accounts and I didn't have money and he told me drive that car, and I drove for 235 kilometers without fuel in the tank. And that is a big vehicle, Benz E200. 235 kilometers with the warning, and again 3 days there was nothing in it. And that's how God tells you that he can do those things. So the things he has done, even in the process, when I tell you the kind of issues has done, he said that God has never changed. He can do them even now. And that's how he's trying to approach this nation. And this nation, we have been going a journey, everybody's going through them. But you do know the background of it is that the hand of God is here, because it's leading us to where he's going to have this country to go through transformation for the comfort of the people. Just as I say that the finger, they're all different. The nation is also having different people, but the fingers never complain that you are overlooking at me, and that's the way he wants this nation to be. So my congregation is nation, and the thing is to pass them the message that God is saying about them and to have hope have hope that tomorrow for God is going to be very bright.
Yeah.
And that is going to be very bright using the background of what the journalist worked with me, which I was using and thinking that I was using my own power, my own knowledge. Until he came, and the reason he got me out of numerical machining complex, later on he was asking him, all these things you do you know the power behind you? Now when I'd come to be accustomed to the voice of God, and he said that I've been doing and people are seeing me, but they are not seeing God. But I cannot see God until I know how God speaks. I can know how God speaks until I do what? I know the word. And that's why he had to take somebody green from nowhere without anything and teach me his word himself. He has taught me not through the man. He has taught me just like he did with Saul when he encountered. He has taught me himself this word so that he can communicate his will by this word. Because he says that in Hebrew 1, verse 1 and 2, in these last days, before he used to speak by the prophets, but these last days, he has spoken by his son. He has spoken. Not he speaking, he has spoken by his son. Which means the word he has spoken has been given to us. Yes? And now it is for here to go here and let him now reveal, give you the revelation when you read that word. And in revealing that word is when you use the signs that he will reveal them to me. And that's the sign that I believe you people want to understand. These things I talk about, the numbers and what, how do they come into the word of God?
As we lay off this introduction part,
Yes, yeah.
there is something that I have not mentioned. You have worked with the big institutions in this country. I want you to mention them and maybe give them credit where due. And also, there is this part that you left out. You found your bank's accounts have been closed up, not you, not the bank, and other things you were going through in life. How did you overcome them at that particular time? Your career was shrinking. How did it come back to life? And also the institution that you have worked with, so that we can lay off and delve into the conversation.
Yes, I believe maybe I can tell I worked with the railways for 19 years. 19, and I know the significance of 19. Something 19 is in 19. I know the reason why.
We'll come to the numbers.
Yes. 19 years. After that, I was a stint outside, because when I left railways, I also left in a controversial manner. And just similar to the one numerical. So in the intervening period between 2003, when I left railways, to 2008, I was now running my own private business for consultancy. NMC government picked me in 2008 as a CEO for NMC until 2012, when they again showed me the door and I got out. But when I was shown the door in 2012 and I went back to do what I was doing before, God told me, no, you are not going to do that. And that was rough. Because then I do not understand who is speaking to me. I find this message odd. I said, but then I'm going to survive, I'm going to live. So I resist. But then I resist and try to force that I have knowledge I can do. But then that's when he entered. I remember the time I wanted to register with NCA, National Construction Authority. Even their system refused to operate. When they wanted to open another account in a bank, they said that for a business account, it's our lawyers who are going to do the search. When they went to company registrar, my files were gone. They were not there. When I went to the bank, to the bank where before they were closed, when I was done, there's a job I was trying to do by force also. So now when I was paid, and the check went there, and it went back, and then I went there to check my accounts, I found they were not existing. So the bank were asking me, why did you close? Because there were 3. None of them was there. And I was asking them, why have you closed my accounts? They're asking me, why did you close your accounts? Then they're sending me to head office. I said, no. You cannot send me to head office. You deal with it. You're the people who are. So I left that and said, I'll go to where I know somebody to open an account for me. It's not possible.
Were they empty or they had some cash?
The money I got that later. They were almost, I was waiting for the time they're being closed is the time that money was bouncing back to go. People send money and they do that what? Back. The one maybe could have something because I had a dollar account for business. That one did not have much in it. I think it was taken by all there. Then I had the regular one, which could not accept any money in it. It comes, it goes.
Were you the only signatory? Maybe there was your partner who was working in the bank.
No. I can't blame it. I was the only signatory. I was the only signatory for that, special. I was the only signatory for all the accounts. There's none I can blame.
And what situation were you financially? The situation you were financially? At this particular time, all these things were happening. Were you struggling, or you were stable like nothing happened?
I can tell you, friends, that God has never made me to struggle. God has never made me to struggle in the way that. So this time, when I was complaining, things were going down. All the money that was there, I was paying rent in the offices. The people were working for me, and what? So by the time I took off, I had seen danger. Within that 9 months, 9 months you can maintain an office in town and sorry from your pocket. But that is what, that's when I said 9 months. And all the things that, because they were assured, businesses had started, which had been given, but I was being blocked from doing them. And the people there also, like, they were celebrating now, maybe this guy, we are not going to pay him this one, this. When I delayed too long going to continue, it was passed over to, instead of following me up, they just pass it over to another person. You expect somebody to complain that you have brought down our industry first company. Actually, the companies were down, they were being done, but then even when I was now being given this problem not to continue, the companies never came back to complain to me. Then I realized that even when I wanted to resort to lecturing, because of my special nature, what I know had come to me, the Nairobi University, the Kenya Polytechnic, the things I have, Kenyatta University, even the ones which went until now waiting just to give me a letter to commence. Nobody could come and do it. Because he was telling me that when I tell you sit down, nothing could work. The job I wanted to push by force, somebody gave me by force. It was from the DOD and the Kaingana thorax. When the vehicle reached Kenol, the wheel flew off. All those photographs I have. I struggled with it eventually, since it had been given, and then those guys came and picked whatever they earned from me, and then the people waited. So when eventually I was being paid by them, where the people had financed this business, and the interest they were charging had come, and same what with the money I was paid. So I picked the entire money and sent to the people who I didn't not even one. The way it was. I picked it the way it was plus interest and returned to the person who financed. Nothing could work. Nothing could work. He will one day tell you the witness, but most of them I captured on this. There are evidences there. I was told, sit down and read my word. Anything that you require, I'll get you through other avenues, but not you. So he blocked me. Nobody can employ me, even if they are. And I've told you that things I do are of special nature. They are the people that have been in things that have been invited to go and do. Not that the one I compete with other people. So when I'm called, I'm very assured of getting them because they are of special nature.
Were you feeling like giving up? Because for
a while, I even lost my hair. Although now I shave. That's why I see. But for a while, my hair started dropping.
Because you kept it on.
Yes, kept on scratching. Yes.
Scratching your hand.
And, but then it was very fast coming. And the reason why it came very fast coming, because the first time I read the Bible, I read it like a novel. When I now sat down, because when I didn't have any other way to go, I sat down in my balcony and opened the book from preface and say, let me pass time here reading this. So I read it just like a novel. But in the process, things were happening. Like they say in the Bible that when Christ was baptized, a dove came and landed on him, and God said, that's my son in whom I'm well pleased. In a vision in the morning, a dove came on me. And then a hand touched me on the waist. And this one, I was already, a vision came when I was already chatting with them. It was about 5 a.m. in the morning. I just woken up a brief to go to the washroom. So this time you come back before you again rest. So I was just having a small chat. Then I slid, and I knew that I was telling my wife, can you see what is happening? Can you see this dove is on me? Kumbi had gone into mumbling. So she was hearing me mumbling, but I was very sure I was telling her. So when I had come back to her, I said, but have you seen that dove and the man who touched me on the waist? They say, what? I mean, I just heard you all of a sudden, today, what is wrong with you? You speak and then you just go up in some kind of inaudible. Then I realized it was a vision over there. That was the one. The second one, I was stuck in a miry clay. Up to knee deep, I could not get out. Then a hand lifted me, a hand came and put me in a tent that was so bright, so neat that it was like, like a lab, clean and with computers. And everything fell off. All the dirt. Then I was referred to Psalms 40. I removed it from my clay and put in place. Psalms 40, you can see that one. Then the third one came. These were coming. There was war and water, something like in our Nyanza place we call it Teruburu, when people are bulls and all that. So I was pushed to a corner where I could not go anywhere. So I started shouting in my sleep. I was shouting and my wife was kicking me. The watchman will hear you shouting. And when I was shouting, a hand came through a small hole, dangling keys. Then I was referred to Isaiah 22 verse 22. The keys of David were given to. So you see, they've been coming, those things. I do and they find them in the Bible. Then I had a vision of a banana efflorescence, that one which comes. But that came some early. Later on, Kumbe, I planted a banana, and then God is using that. Every time he tells me a message, when I go to the shamba, he tells me, go find out, I'll instruct a banana to shoot. And every time a message comes, the banana efflorescence comes up. So that he speaks to that. So I started seeing, and there's physical, even the dove physical, that he sends. He sent the dove, which stayed with me for the whole day, and nobody could touch it. But it comes, you want to touch it, it goes to the tree and comes back. And then it stayed with him the whole day, physical, and that one. So even when I was talking to my son and writing about the way the spirit comes and what, and my son, and was saying the balcony, I said, then the dove comes and lands right in front of us when I'm telling you about that. So very many of these things, he has actualized them. Then I knew that, this is spiritual communication. So the only thing was giving me comfort that when he tells me that, he sends me to the right particular to show me in the Bible what it is. And even this way, you remember in the book of John, when Christ had laid in a tomb, and when he had resurrected, they say the handkerchief which was covered, I think John 20 verse 5, which had been, he said, was nicely folded and put in a corner by its own. So when Peter and John came, they noticed that the handkerchief that was inside was put aside. When I was going to sleep, to bed, the way you remove and then you put on your night clothes. So I packed mine in the closet where I normally keep them. So in the morning when I come, I found one of them missing. So I think, Madam, did you pick one of them and then keep in the basket? That one I'm calling, she has gone to work. I said, no, I have not touched your things. But I said, but one is not there. So I go sit down and wonder. When I'm sitting in there, it refers me to that John 20. So then he said me, go to the ceiling board. And my house is big. My house is quite big. It's about 25 meters. The ceiling board is quite span. And I said, how do I go? So I went in there with the light and what. When I was about to get tired, in some corner, I find it one nicely folded and kept in the ceiling board. So you wonder, there are no gaps, there's no what. How did this cloth come from here to that place? So...
And you interpreted that as a?
There's a spiritual. He's telling me this. What you say that spiritual lives, spiritual moves, spirit is there. Spirit is live. It moves. It can move these things and send. Yes? So he said that spirit is with you.
And you had that discernment to know it is evil spirit or Holy Spirit?
Okay, people who want to call it evil and what, but when he takes me here, the other thing that God does, because he got me raw. Not interactive issues. People talk about evil things. I wouldn't tell you background because I have not been a student of those kind of thoughts. Even when things are happening, me, I've never even focused on issue of evil, which God has made me now to come understand. Even the evil seeks permission from Him. Yeah, the evil seeks permission from God. There's nothing that God can happen under God's watch without. If He allows it, He allows it for a particular reason.
Before we go there and. Mr. Kejua, get hold of that thought because it's very interesting. I want to go slightly back. I realize that in most cases, your wife has played some role, especially in giving you reference on what to read in the Bible and relate with what is happening in your life. What can you mention about her role. And you know, earlier there was a question about, from Kenya, about do you have close friends who you confide in, who perhaps guide you in your transition?
Yes. May I hand the baton of my friends who, you know, when before I got here, I was leading a normal life of somebody who is blessed with the resources. A normal life, you know, you have to go out. The only thing that I used to go to kind of secluded places, which not secluded places where I know that depends on the type of friend I have. Yes, they can't easily go. I had enough to take me to places where you, because I'm saying I've come from even tasting the drink. And my drink was not the ordinary one. It was Johnny Walker Black Label. That's the only one I ever took.
You were weightlifting heavy drinks?
Yes, heavy, those ones. And I was not doing them where people could see. So at the place I go...
You are proud of your privacy.
Yes, my privacy. I was a private person. Yes, privacy. So not very many people would even associate me with any of those. Yes, at all. Because even places I was going, you don't encounter them. They don't go there. Yeah, most of the places I used to go, they don't come there. So that one, the friends confided in me. It's only that when they started hearing about this, they started looking at me with different lenses. There are a few who have come who are saying, hey, they call me GS. Who would have believed that you wouldn't speak? Because they know where I've come from, those who knew me. They look at me and say, hey, kumbe Mungu yuko. It is you who is now from this side to here. They always say, the ones who knew, yes, they say that kumbe Mungu yuko. They don't believe that I could, that even if somebody hears me now, he's associating me with the other one. There are a few friends even from class where from university days. Maybe the people could not even pray that we want to start an exam and now let's pray and then have the exam. Nobody could do it. Well, of course, then I was also a big weightlifter. I was strong, muscular. I was a bully. So they could not do it. So when they start, I shut them down. So those ones, when they see me now, they always wonder, kumbe Mungu.
So is it, you know, behind every man, there is a wife, a woman? What influence has she had in okay, one thing you need to understand. A wife looks at you as somebody who should bring in the bread. Who should bring in the bread. And there's also the, you know, this is the 13th year. 2012 this is 13th year. When it takes too long, they start wondering whether it is divine or whether there's some forces. Yes. As the one who was actually directing me before, when I share with her, actually most of the dreams she's the one who interrupts them, because some of them can be very violent. She wakes me up in the night. What's happening? So when I explain, so there are things that times you even wakes up and say, hey, I heard you speaking to Jesus, because he cannot hear what I'm saying, you cannot hear what I'm being told, but he can hear me answer. So you said, I heard you speaking to Jesus, what were you saying? So she wakes me up, and then that. Then now after it's taking too long, they start wondering, is it really the Spirit of God, or is it the other spirit? So that one is another story, where it is how it has affected the family in the waiting, mostly in the waiting. Because initially, even this Bible, if you assure you, it is her who went to buy it. Yes, even this Bible. When I was struggling, she's the one who went to buy it.
And maybe a question, is she a woman of the crowd?
I found that she's, that's the reason why she has issues. When later on, I found that she's been born again from the time I met her. Yes, all along, from the time I met her. So she's a woman of the, there are the people who try to draw me to God, but I was impossible. My sisters, everybody tried to draw me to this, but it was impossible. But God knew that when he comes, of course you can't resist him. That's why everybody was wondering, hey, huyu aliwezwa, lakini amewezwa na nani? Na mwenye wadi mwenyewe. Yes, he's the one.
Okay, and finally, so that we can have a short break, then we'll come back with we'll dig deep to the message of the day. How are you responding to these callings, dreams, and visions?
By the time they were coming, I already started seeing visions and dreams and getting them here. And it is a process. That one you'll see when you get to that. There's like a time for visitation for God. When he visits, there's a particular sign he uses, a number that he uses here. So those numbers, I'd already now started getting them. He started showing me. So when I know very well this has come from the divine message. This is a divine message. When I see that, so I started knowing very well that this one is not just an ordinary thing. This is a divine message. When he started with me from 35. That 35, which he made sure that anything which belonged to the case that was in court was assigned a sign of 35 until when it ended. Because the message that I was going through, I received when I was 35 years old. And that's why he came and did everything. So I knew something is working on this number. From there, he started introducing me to himself, to the spirit, to the promises, to all this, and which are all here. We'll go and you see them. So I started knowing very well, and especially when a hand comes and you converse and you wake up and you know very well, I've gotten a message. And this message you find that is here. Normally when I got a message and then I find them here, I know very well this is what.
Okay, up to that point we know that God do speak to you. Does he do so directly or use mediators?
No. I don't know whether you call mediators, not really, mostly for confirmation. Not a mediator. Something like, let's say the church he asked me where I go to. There's a pastor there. I can give you like last time, which is for the last Sunday before I went to church. I'd prayed about coming. You know, for here I had to ask. I didn't just come. For me to come here, I had to seek permission, seek his view, seek his word to come. So how did he answer me? He answers me by doing things which are related to this. He sent me to open the book of Genesis, chapter 9. That was 1 a.m. in the morning on Saturday, which was a time to Sunday anyway, 1 a.m. So I read it because there's a word I was looking for, the relationship about the blessing and the new beginning. And it took me to Genesis chapter 9. And I read it up to where the issue will talk about that anybody who sheds man's blood by man's blood by man's hand, his blood shall be shed. That's in Genesis 9. After that, he took me to the issue of the shedding of blood of David of Uriah, and the condemnation he gave to David about issue of Absalom and what. So it took me and I read all that until chapter 18 of 2 Samuel. So when I went to church, the pastor was preaching, and I found him eating God's vengeance, and he came to shedding of blood, which had been, you know. So when I get shedding of blood, one of the references we asked her to open was Genesis 9, talking about shedding of blood. Then he came and finished with it. David shed the blood of Uriah, and he had to pay for that, and then all those, the concubines and what, the way that had got them. So this one came to tell me that when I get them there, I know the answer I got to come here was from who? From him. And that is what I was given. So when I went to church, that's exactly what the pastor preached. So that I knew very well that this was a confirmation to come.
Engineer Goerge Sammy Onyango, that form base of what we're going to tackle today, and it's quite refreshing and a good moment to have you. Mr. Clement, I'm sure you're eager to know how Masonic and Messianic use numeric turn the order of the day.
Yes, I'm actually looking forward to getting an insight on what numbers in our lives and in our spiritual, religious life. Because many people do not understand, and perhaps sometimes they get the wrong information from different quarters, and they are not able to know what is true, what is false. And of course, we all have a lot of prophets of misinformation within technology nowadays, disinformation, and so forth. So I am really looking forward to have a clear understanding of how numbers relate to our lives.
God uses them, yes.
Also Kenyan prophecy, where we have come from, where we are, and maybe how our future looks like. But that comes shortly after this short break.
Okay.
Thank you.
Muthenya tukihoya tuhoyaga nyoni iri munyaka iturokere nimo maya mahoya kambuni ya The Bravo Republic rungu rwa kambuni nene ya The East African Royal Bird iria noyo nyene kambuni ya Thobe TV na kambuni ya Vipimo Africa mari na ndeto njega. Kambuni ya The East African Royal Bird kugerera kambuni ya The Bravo Republic nĩ manĩrĩire kwendia mũgũnda wao wa Kajiado Royal Garden Phase 2 ũrĩa wĩ Kajiado Town. Mũgũnda ũyũ ũtinangĩtio plots ya 50 by 100 in a controlled development. Kajiado Royal Garden Phase 2 nĩ ritho na iniũrũ kuma Kajiado Town hakuhĩ na ofici nene cia kaunti ya Kajiado hũgũrũrũ-inĩ cia mũkawa wa gĩkĩro gĩa 5 star wa Ruat Rock Resort kũrĩ na maĩ ma kũrĩma ma kũnyua, thitima, barabara gatagatĩ ga facilities ingĩ cia bata. Plot ici cirĩ na basis cia first come first serve na title cia tayari. Aranĩria na madirector a kambuni ya The Bravo Republic Simon Jogu kana Peter Garuya marĩ Phoenix, Arizona bũrũri-inĩ wa Amerika. Kugerera namba 316-371-9196 we with diaspora gũkũ bũrũri-inĩ wa Jamhuri. Aranĩria na sales manager Joseph Maina kugerera namba 0722-735-569. The Bravo Republic. Join the Republic of Ideal Deals.